Hello students, this is Professor Holbrook. Today we're going to talk about Chapter 5, which is Ritual Action, or the Sacred Ritual. So I'm going to just give you a quick introduction using my Prezi for Chapter 5. It's a good idea to read the chapter and to also go through the PowerPoints because the Prezi only contains some highlights. It doesn't contain all the detail that's in the PowerPoint or the chapter. So I hope this weekend you will keep the book in your bathroom and read every chance you have to sit down. And I also hope you have a good weekend. So it's Saturday morning, and here is the preview for Sacred Ritual. A religious ritual can be defined as an agreed on and formalized pattern of ceremonial movements, and verbal expressions carried out in a sacred context. In other words, ritual is performative. It reinforces belief and behavior by repetition. It has been said that man is what he eats, or to put it another way, we become what we habitually do. Another phrase that describes this concept is habits of the heart. Whatever you do on a daily basis ends up shaping and forming your character and your personality. And this is part of the reason for hold on, I'm having a problem here. This is part of the reason for ritual. I have this frozen up. Okay, here we go. So there are various types of sacred ritual. We're going to talk about healing rituals, life cycle rites, and calendar or seasonal rituals. These are different types. This is a shaman from the film Black Robe. His name is Mestagoit. And here's a couple of other images of healing rituals, and in this case it's an exorcism. So first let's talk about life cycle rites. Rites of passage often reveal a common pattern consisting of three elements: the acts of separation, transition, and reincorporation into the community. I believe it was the anthropologist Victor Turner who called this a liminal state. Liminal means in between. For example, when a child becomes an adult, there is a liminal period when the child is no longer really a child but not quite yet an adult. Some of you may feel that way in college, like you're no longer children, but you still are not married, you don't own a house, you don't have a career, so you're kind of in between two stages of life. And some of these life cycle rites are baptism. That's especially important in some high churches such as Catholicism. First communion, which is the rite in which you reaffirm your baptism. If you were baptized as a child before or as an infant, the first communion is when you make an adult choice to affirm your faith. The bar mitzvah for Jewish boys, in which they become a man and commit, an adult man, and commit to follow the commandments. Marriage is another important life cycle rite. And last rites, or extreme unction, are usually the last rite that we experience before death. There are also calendar and seasonal rites. Societies mark the seasons and important events in the cycle of the year with public rituals. What would some of these be in your own background or your own faith tradition? Obviously, Christmas is important in the United States, especially for Christians. Easter, Holy Week, La Semana Santa is another important rite, public rite in the springtime. Then there's also the 4th of July, which is not a religious rite, but it's a nationalistic or a civil rite. And then we have in the fall, we have Halloween, which is a rite. And we have Thanksgiving, which is unique to the United States. And then finally, we're back once again to Christmas. Mardi Gras, or Carnival, is really important in Latin American countries that have a Catholic background. In Mardi Gras, or Carnaval, there is a carnival atmosphere in the streets of the city, accompanied by ritual combats, symbolizing the ascendancy of chaos. The social order is overturned, slaves become masters, and masters become slaves, and a criminal is enthroned as the carnival king. Interestingly enough, this happens just before Lent. So just before a period of fasting and spirituality, reflection, self-denial, is this outburst of this fleshly, sensual outburst of Mardi Gras or Carnival. Do we have that in Miami, by the way? Do we have Carnival? Yes, we do. It's called Calle Ocho. That's our Carnival. The anthropologist E.B. Taylor suggested that sacrifice evolved through three stages. Gift giving was the early stage, then homage, and then finally abnegation or renunciation. And there's two different kinds of sacrifice. One is called propitiation. To propitiate means to cause to become favorably inclined, to appease or to conciliate another. And then expiation is slightly different. Expiation is when you've offended the higher power or the nobility or the king or the god. Propitiation is when you're starting from a neutral place. There's no offense, but you're trying to gain favor. Expiation is when there's been an offense given, and so you're making amends, or you're practicing an atonement for a defilement or a sinful transgression. So, for example, for Christians, we see in the cross of Jesus, where he died on the cross, this is viewed by Christians as an expiation, where Christ is making amends or atoning for the sins of Adam and Eve and for humanity. Then there are rituals as sacraments. We mentioned this a little bit earlier. Broadly speaking, all religious ritual is sacramental, in that it concerns the presence of the sacred or holy. Ritual can represent or create a structure of meaning that is capable of binding us together in a spiritual community. And again, we see baptism, first communion, bar mitzvah, marriage, last rites are sacramental rituals. So this is the introduction to sacred ritual. Read the book this weekend, and we will have some discussion and get in greater detail. As you're watching the film Luther, you should also be looking for some of these sacred rituals, particularly baptism, the sacramental ones, also perhaps the exorcism. You might think about that in terms of some of Martin Luther's encounters or conversations with Satan or with the devil. Okay, God bless you. Have a good weekend.